Hello, everybody. Today's lesson is about coordinated management of meaning theory by Pearson and Cronin. So let's get into it. So I want you to think about that as you go about your life. You have all kinds of interactions. You communicate with people, and uh, what you do is you collect meanings and experiences to create meaning systems in your brain. So, for example, what I'm talking about here is when you go to the bar and you see and hear people over these various times, all of this gets added to your understanding or meaning system for how people act at bars or what you can expect at a bar, right? So, um, we have this experience here, it gives me messages. This experience gives me messages. Right? So each time I go to a bar, now I have this frame of reference for understanding what a bar is, right, or going to a bar. And this is what's known as a deterministic screen. So it's a reference for you for interpretation. And what it is a collection of meanings, and it's a meaning system surrounding a particular symbol. So as you see here on the left, we have things such as family or threats, things that we perceive as threats. We have our understanding of what cities are, things that are bad, or what we think is cool, or what is cool right now, or what our ideas of dogs, or what nice people do, right? So each one of these things is a deterministic screen. So, and as we consume more symbols related to that deterministic stream, we start to solidify what it is. So here on the right, if we're at a market, the more times we go to a market, we start to develop a deterministic stream surrounding what happens at markets and the communication and the meanings surrounding what a market is. And as you can imagine, past experiences are really important in shaping our meaning system. So if you have, let's say, one experience with a pit bull, you start to feel a certain way, but then you have another one, and maybe you see some things on TV or read some stuff more about pit bulls, and it starts to more firmly shape our meaning systems or the deterministic screen through which that we see the world. These also are formed through interpersonal interactions. Such as greetings, right? So if each time you have this experience where people reach out their hands, then it helps to shape our understanding of what a greeting is and what a handshake is. So not only interpersonal interactions, but the media can also be very important in shaping your meaning systems of things you don't know about, or maybe it's things you do know about as well. So if, as we can see here, if we watch a lot of Fox News and they're talking about Democrats, then it would change our perspective of what Democrats are in some regard. So as we consume new symbols and have more interactions, they're filtered through these deterministic screens, but they can help reinforce or alter them in certain ways. So let's say we have messages that come in that don't match up, they can alter our understanding of a particular screen. So the interesting part and the reason why this is connected to mass communication in our course is that in human communication there's such a wide variety of meanings and symbols, right? So there's words, but then there's also nonverbals that all carry meaning, and each one of those things becomes a deterministic screen. So here, maybe nobody's telling me what an appropriate business attire is, but when I go to work and I see other people dressed a certain way, I start to perceive that as being business attire, appropriate business attire, which is all nonverbal. So, what coordinated management and meaning theory helps us understand is the process that we go through to interpret communication, right? So, for example, when someone bows and you think that they're supposed to shake, CMM helps us understand what's going to go on in your head, right? It explains the process that you're going to go through and the specific broader deterministic screens, the way that they're filtered. So this is the model for CMM, and this is important for you to know. So if you want to screenshot or however you want to do it. So what CMM shows us here is that certain elements of our deterministic screens are more important than others. So, for example, cultural patterns has the largest has the largest section in this upside down pyramid because of the fact that it influences our interpretations much more. So, at each level, they represent certain things. So, content is the words of a particular message, right? Or words or a particular message that's given to us. Speech act is how that message was communicated. Episode is the actual lived experience of receiving the message. The relationship is your relationship with the communicator. Your life script is the past experiences and your sense of self, and the cultural patterns are the cultural norms of the group that you associate with. All of these things are the levels of interpretation that we go through when we consume a message. So let's just walk through an example so it's a little easier to understand. Let's say you're sitting on your couch and you receive this message through text. You're just hanging out on your couch and you get this text message. It says, "We will suspend your Netflix account today because you failed to pay." Okay, so if we walk through and when we walk through the CMM pyramid here, reverse pyramid, what it'll help us understand is the process we go through to interpret this message, so we understand and come to a finalized meaning. So in this sense, if we walk through each step, the content of this message is, "We will suspend your Netflix account today." It's the actual words that are sent to you. The speech act is how it's communicated. In this example, it's a text message. You receive a text message, which is different than if somebody were to say it to you or you were to see it on a wall. The episode is the actual interaction or the lived experience that took place. For you, you're sitting on your couch. That's how you receive. That's the lived experience of receiving this message. The relationship is that you don't know this person. It's just a random number. The life script is that you have had this experience before. It is not uncommon to receive text messages like this that are total scams, and you just move on with your life. And then finally, culturally speaking, it's a fairly cultural norm to ignore these types of messages. So as we can see, each one of these lined up. And that when that happens in our interpretation, that's what's known as a charmed loop. So all the meaning systems line up and they logically make sense. So like with the last example, there was no, as you saw, the flow, just it was all right there. A strange loop though is when they don't. When there's something, when you receive the message that when it goes through these interpretive levels of interpretation, that something doesn't line up. So for example, in a charm loop, a teacher says to you, "You have homework." So in this, we walk through this, the content is the words, "You have homework." The speech act is that they spoke the words to you. The episode is that you were in class. The relationship is that they're your teacher. Your life script is that you've had teachers tell you to do homework before, and the cultural patterns is that in your culture, it is not. It's fairly regular that teachers will tell students that they have homework. Now, a strange loop, let's imagine that you're at a gas station and the clerk behind the counter says to you, "You have homework." So the content is still the same, the speech act is still the same, but then it starts to deviate when we go to episode. The episode is that you're at the gas station, and that doesn't line up with the content and speech act. It starts to take a different course. Likewise, the relationship, these things, as it goes up, it just throws everything out of whack. So when this happens, what it requires you to do is it requires you to work harder to interpret the meanings. It requires you to kind of figure out why things don't line up, and it forces you to adapt your deterministic screen. So in other words, this new interaction will help you rethink to some level what homework is, or it might make you rethink your deterministic screen for what store clerks do or their role. So in some way, this message, because you would have to work with it more, interpret it more to make sense of it. So the question is, what can we do with this theory? And I think this is really important to address with each theory, is what we can actually do with it. So in terms of CMM, if you're aware of the tenets of CMM, if you understand that there's these levels of interpretation and deterministic screens and so forth, what it can do is that it allow you to be more of an effective communicator, and it can help you connect with people better if you understand their deterministic screens. So if I understand how you symbolically see the world, if I understand your deterministic screens, then I can send messages and craft messages in a way that connects with you better, and it doesn't require any extra interpretation for you, right? In other words, I can speak someone's language if I understand CMM. And this doesn't mean that I speak in slang or in styles that others do. What it means is that I'm able to connect with you more clearly, or clearer. I can connect with you clearly, right? So for example, imagine that you think that when people speak fast in a conversation, that it means that they're angry, unsettled, or upset with you. So you're in a conversation, someone's speaking real fast, and you think that that just means they want to dismiss you or they don't like you. Now, I know that where I'm from, people speak fast. So if I'm aware of your terministic screen, in order to speak your language, what I'm going to do is slow down my rate of speaking. So that way you think more positively. You don't think that I'm angry with you. So in turn, you end up liking me more. So by just knowing your terministic screen, I can adapt my communication to more effectively communicate with you. And that's why CMM is important. And you can use this when you're talking to employees, employers, parents, teachers, or really anyone, right? It's an effective way to persuade, but then also just to connect with people in a real genuine way. So if you can understand meaning systems and speak somebody's language, quote unquote, and it would help you effectively communicate with them. So that's what we can do with this. This is the Coordinated Management of Meaning by Pearson Cronin. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me.